Welcome to Raising Consciousness with me, Lou Burrows, where raising human consciousness happens. On this show, I'm joined by guests to cover a range of topics and have conversations that will raise human consciousness for current and future generations. Now, let's dive into today's show. Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Raising Consciousness with me, your host, Lou Burrows, and I'm really excited for today's episode. I feel like I say that every episode because I love to do this. I love to have deep conversations, deep meaningful conversations with guests, and obviously on some of the episodes share my own insights and perspectives as well. And today on the show, we have a very special guest. Roberta Hughes joins us, who is the founder and lead instructor at PeaceFull Living. And I was just taking a look on her website. I would definitely recommend checking out more what she does. It's a boutique hybrid studio that conveys a dedicated and personalized peaceful living practices. So think your Pilates, meditation, yoga classes. And yeah, I was really curious to learn more about what she does. So I'm really happy that she's joined me today on the show. So Roberta, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Luke, for having me here. I'm excited as well. So I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if we start off by how did you get into the type of work that you do? How did you discover yoga and meditation? And then, we'll see where the conversation takes us today.
Sure. So I discovered yoga when I was 19 years old, and I took my very first yoga class in college as a 1-credit course. And my current blog actually talks a little bit about that story. Every time I went to the yoga class, in between all of my other classes, the way that I felt at the end, it really stayed with me throughout the rest of the day. And even my friends could notice a difference in how I looked after that class, how I seemed after that class, and I could feel a difference.
Amazing. Yeah. And how about meditation and Pilates as well? Was that later on in your journey?
Yes, so meditation came to me a little bit later. So after graduating college, I became a young wife. So I got married when I was 23. I had my first son at 25. And a few years after that, I got pregnant with my second son. And that's when I really dove into a true yoga certification. I had taken some weekend certifications prior to that, but I was living near Santa Barbara, California, which was really a hub at the time for yoga and learning how to teach. And at that time was when I began to do more with meditation through that teacher training. And then I also, about a year after that, took my first silent yoga retreat, which was lots of time spent in meditation. And then with
Amazing.
Pilates, I didn't come to Pilates until about 2009. And it was a little bit by accident because I was in a job where I was managing the yoga program, and then they also needed me to manage the Pilates program. And I didn't have any Pilates experience at that time. So they put me through my level 1 training, and I was hooked. Having been a yogi, a cheerleader, a gymnast throughout my life, my back was starting to go out on me. It actually went out on me the first time when I was 19 years old, and then got significantly worse each time it happened. And since my Pilates training, I haven't had a back issue. So I feel like the 3 practices together really help with the whole health and wellness of my body. And I have seen it help with the health and wellness of other people's bodies as well.
So obviously your business, your company is called PeaceFull Living. What does a peaceful life, what does that mean for you, if that makes sense? I'm curious to dive more into that.
Yeah, when most people hear peaceful living, it's this elusive idea. What would that be like? What would that feel like? And peaceful living isn't about just being at peace all of the time. It's really about bringing tools into your life to bring yourself into these peaceful moments on purpose. So it's a practice in its own right, where you're utilizing tools to help regulate your nervous system, to help you manage stress, to help you feel better and sleep better every single day.
And it's definitely needed, right? I feel like the world like we live in today, it's a lot of people are becoming more stressed and more anxious. I've had my own ups and downs with anxiety and stuff. And in particular, meditation and just like moving my body, exercise has been great tools that's allowed me to overcome that and obviously now do what I do, really. Yeah, I feel like all these practices are really important to allow us to also feel like come back into our true nature and enable us to get back to the core of who we are. I don't know if you would agree with that.
Absolutely. For me, these three practices are the gateway to my authentic self
Mm.
because they help you peel away the layers of all of the things that stand in your way from connecting to that inner place that is always at peace, that experiences love, that experiences harmony. So, as we peel through those layers and touch into those special places within ourselves, we can connect to our authentic nature and show up as a true version of who we are, not just the version of what we do in the world.
So, touching on meditation, I feel like there's a potential stigma attached to it that it's like this thing that we do where we cross our legs and like hum all day or something, or go to or sit on top of a mountain or something. And what I've learned is that actually, I guess it's also that, it can be that, but really it's just finding those moments within ourselves to just be with ourselves ultimately. I learned an instant meditation practice not long ago because I've been taking a course all about intuition, and it says I think it's like 1 minute like daily mindfulness meditation. This is really quick, so like after a meeting I could just practice that, and it just helps me to calm, resets myself before I go into the next activity of my day, rather than just going from one thing to the next thing. So I would love to talk about that and how actually it's not this thing in our mind of what we think it is, and actually is it that?
Yeah, so when you say meditation, I think most people see a Buddhist monk sitting cross legged in a temple, harmonious, at peace, and very Zen. If you ask any person who has a meditation practice, they will tell you that meditation is learning how to be with all of the things that create suffering and to loosen your relationship to them. Meditation is about learning how to be with your busy mind. Oftentimes, a meditator will call it the monkey mind because it really does feel like it's jumping all about here and there and everywhere. And as you practice meditation, you're learning tools and skills to move away from the thoughts and connect with an anchor. Oftentimes, the breath is a perfect anchor. It could be the flame of a candle, it could be an object, it could be a vision that you create in your mind. So, creating tools to understand my mind is thinking, or my mind is wandering, my mind is doing the grocery list, the checklist, and interrupting that and finding a way to bring it back to a place of peace and quiet. And I like to tell people to be playful with that practice, because if you sit down with the expectation that you're going to meditate and your mind is going to be clear and free and peaceful the whole time, you're going to be really disappointed. If you approach your meditation practice as this is something I'm teaching my mind how to do newly, just like you're teaching your body to run a mile or to practice a new skill, you're not going to do it perfectly the first time or the second time or the third time. You need to put in that time and know that things are going to go amiss. Things aren't always going to feel great. But as you practice more, you're going to get those little moments of peace, those little moments of quiet, those little moments of clarity. And I think that's what keeps meditators coming back for more. Um, However, if you start searching to try to find those places, they become elusive. So it's a practice, and it's important to keep a sense of humor and to be playful in that practice.
When I first started, I would judge myself a bit because I'd go into it thinking, oh, isn't the whole point of this to quiet the mind, not have any thoughts? And actually, when you first started, it seemed like my mind was louder ultimately. And I guess it's because I was in that place of not having done that before. And over time, I learned how to create that space of my mind can be having these thoughts and racing, but I'm not consciously thinking them, if that makes sense. And then over time, it just gets quieter and quieter. I love that you mentioned that. I'm sure you've probably experienced that as well.
Yes, you really loosen your attachment to the thinking mind. So at first, it can almost show up like a bully. Like you said, the second you try to get quiet, it gets louder and more active and busier and more stubborn. All of those things show up. And I think they show up as a way to keep us from going deeper, because it's easy to say, this is terrible. I'm not going to ever do this again. But if you keep diving back in a little bit at a time, it does get better and you experience that for yourself. But then life will happen, and there might be a season where meditation becomes really challenging again because of certain things that have occurred in a person's life. So it's not always the same practice, but it is a great way to create a mirror, to have a reflection of where your brain is, where your body is, where your heart is, depending on the things that are occurring in your life. And then being able to loosen your attachment to them, almost like you're watching clouds drift across a blue sky. You're not taking your attention fully into the clouds and letting them carry you away. You're simply watching, and you can do the same with your thoughts.
One of the things I've noticed, not just in terms of what we're talking about, but just like health in general, how health is very much personal to all of us. And I feel there's this big one fits all approach, whether that's with training or whatever it is. Do you also feel it's the same with yoga and meditation, where actually a one size fits all approach may not be as effective as if we personalize these practices to who we are, if that makes sense?
I absolutely think one size does not fit all. We are unique human beings, and what speaks to you may not be the same thing that speaks to me. There might be similarities and elements within a practice that speak to us equally as well. But if I were to only pursue one type of meditation and it wasn't serving the purpose that I needed, which was to become more enlightened, to become more aware, to become more at peace, if that practice was feeling really rigid and forced, it wouldn't be serving me. So I could continue to say, all right, this is the practice that I have to figure out. I have to get it right. But that's the opposite of what we're trying to do. What we're trying to do is find the things that do speak to us, that do suit us, and help us gain more clarity, help us gain self-awareness, help us alter our relationship to stress. So sometimes a practice, if we say, this is the only practice and this is the way I have to do it because this is how this person does it, it creates more stress and anxiety as we're trying to learn it. And then, like you said, those places of judgment and limiting beliefs really show up because we're feeling like a failure. It's important to personalize things. So I tell people, if you have a really bad experience with yoga, Pilates, or meditation, look for a new teacher. Look for a teacher that resonates with who you are, with how you learn, with how you are able to manifest things in your own mind and your own body. And a good teacher is always going to push you and challenge you, but that relationship needs to be a relationship of trust at the very beginning in order for you to grow and really benefit from the practice.
And would you recommend people seek out a teacher, or if somebody wanted to do it, there's lots of different apps and stuff these days. Do you always recommend seeking out a teacher, or is there some other go-to resources that if people wanted to practice it, as soon as they finish listening to this episode, what would you recommend to them?
Sure. So this is a tricky conversation because there are so many things available for free out there, and especially younger generations. My youngest son is one of those. He's probably learned 90% of the things that he does right now on YouTube. However, I feel that you get a certain level of learning. And then if you are really interested in something and you want to expand and grow and dive deeper, a human relationship, a human contact is going to get you there. On my website, I have a lot of virtual content that people can utilize, anywhere from a 2-minute Zen break, which is similar to your mindful minute, just getting a little bit of support, all the way to 45-minute practices. I encourage people to try a session, but then I always like to have a conversation. How did it go for you? Getting to know, is my content going to help you? And if my content isn't going to help you, then maybe I know another teacher, another type of content that will help you differently or in the way that you need. So a teacher is really there to guide you so that you don't feel like you're trying to do it all by yourself. There are reasons why people specialize in the things that they do. I always use the example of plumbers and electricians. If we try to DIY those jobs, we end up taking a lot longer and maybe creating more mistakes that are unnecessary and having outcomes that are unnecessary. And we pay for that in the long run. With meditation, yoga, and Pilates, all three of these are intimately connected to how your body, your mind, and your nervous system operate. There is a lot to know, but having an experience is important. So utilizing that free content to have an experience, see what you're attracted to, and then when you're ready for more, getting a teacher that can help guide you.
In terms of personalizing our practices as well, is that through learning and like gaining feedback? So what I mean by that, if I was to do a yoga session, like from that I would feel like, oh, this felt good, or this didn't feel so good, and then I'm like learn from there and grow from the next session, learn from that. Is that how we start to understand and personalize our practice?
Yeah, what you're describing is self-awareness. So through a yoga practice, a meditation practice, a Pilates practice, what people start to gain is that self-awareness. When I move this way, I feel this in my body. When I sit down to meditate, I experience this in my nervous system or in my mind or in my heart. And then having conversations about what you're experiencing can then help you personalize the practices for you. So oftentimes what I'll hear, especially with yoga, is I went to a yoga class or I tried a yoga video and then my knees were hurting or my back was hurting. Chances are your alignment isn't proper for your body, or your body isn't ready to go into some of these postures yet. So learning how to prepare your body, learning how to take care of your body so that you aren't creating pain, that's where a teacher would come in to support you. But if you take a class and you feel really good and you feel really relaxed, that's a good sign. Take that class again. I really encourage people to repeat things that are working for them, because that place of familiarity helps to calm the brain, because now the brain is connected to the pattern and the ritual of doing it rather than trying to figure things out. So after the learning process that the brain goes through, you can really immerse yourself into the feeling and experience of a practice by repeating it more than one time.
If we have someone who's listening or watching on the other end, and the question that they come up with is, Roberta, Luke, why is this important? Why, when I do a yoga practice and I notice this, and then next session I bring that into it, like, why is that important? Like, why is self-awareness important?
Because when you're aware of your body, when you're aware of how your body moves, how your body feels under different stimulus, under stress, it gives you more power, and it gives you the ability to have power over your own health. The purpose for me for all three of these practices is, when I'm 65, 75 years old, I want to feel just as good in my body as I do today. Now I know age and time are going to wear on me and things will feel differently, but I'm really taking care of my body so that it has longevity, so that it has health and wellness regardless of my age or stage in life.
I love that. Do you feel like people give up their power too soon?
I feel like people either give up their power too soon or they never even step into it. Oftentimes, I work with clients who have very little self-awareness. So everything that they feel feels like pain, or everything that they feel hurts, or they can't really differentiate between muscle soreness and muscle activation. and pain. All three feel the same. Through a yoga practice, through developing self-awareness, you have more understanding where you can discern, is this pain or is it discomfort? Pain should always be paid attention to. Anytime someone is experiencing pain over a period of time, I always say, get it diagnosed. I'm not a doctor. Let's figure out what's going on. And that gives you power. Getting a diagnosis sooner than later, you can avoid surgery. You can avoid long-term health problems. Doctors are able to look into the body through different imaging, through different testing. So if you're experiencing symptoms over and over again, let's figure out why. But sometimes symptoms are stress related or emotionally related, and those will start to go away with a yoga practice, a meditation practice, a Pilates practice. And that's where you can really discern the difference between discomfort and things that are unsettled in your body versus things that might be injured or need attention.
I might be stereotyping a bit. I'm just curious on like your clientele. Are they mostly like women, men, yeah, like younger, older? Yeah, it's just something that I'm aware of. So I'm 27. I look about 19. I get that all the time, but I'm not. And even within like my age demo and people that I've grew up with, when I started these type of practices, I would get frowned upon. So I'm just like curious. Like you're more in this work than I am. I do feel like there's a shift within culture in general. More people are becoming more open and aware, and noticing that actually like these things work, like these things help, especially more in the Western world. So I'm just like curious from your perspective, like a clientele or people you talk to, what's like the vibe that you're getting and seeing ultimately?
So my youngest client is 16. I started working with her when she was 14, female.
Wow.
Um, my youngest son is now 19 years old. So I'm 49. People think I look maybe 30, 35. I don't know. And I attribute that to the practices that I've done throughout my life. However, my youngest client is 16. She is a long distance runner very competitively. I started working with her because she was having some hip and knee issues that were limiting her ability to perform at her optimal best. I see her maybe a handful of times a month during off season, and then during season, maybe once every 6 to 8 weeks. However, because she is an athlete and she has great body awareness, when I teach her things to take care of her body while she's running and help her feel that and experience that, it's actually helped her perform better without pain. So she sees the value of that. My 19-year-old son, I keep trying to get him to come to yoga. He loves to weight lift. He loves to do things that are going to change the architecture of his body. That's where he's excited. He will do a few things because his hamstrings are tight. He'll put his legs up the wall. So a few little tools that I've given him over the years, I see him putting into his practice. He will lie on his floor and get quiet and understand how that can bring him to a place where he feels closer to God. His spiritual practices are very important to him. My oldest client is in her 70s, but between those ages, I have quite a few male clients, probably more over the age of 55. I tend to find the people who start to appreciate these practices really are those type A people who want to be high performers, who want to have longevity, who want to do all of the things that they want to do without feeling burnt out. Once they can understand how these practices support their energy system and how they have more energy to do the things that they want to do, and their bodies feel better and they're sleeping better, that's where they become super interested. So different ages and stages of life, I feel like people come to these practices when they're ready to level up, if you will, and to try something new to support what they want to do in life.
You've mentioned longevity a few times. I'm curious to from you, like what does that mean for you?
Longevity means having the best health and wellness of your body possible at any age and stage of life. And life is unpredictable, so we never know what's going to come our way. We could get injured. We could have an illness come our way. But the more self-awareness we have, the more capability we have to understand how to help our bodies through those difficult times, the more longevity we will have, I believe, throughout our lives, that we'll be able to heal and recover and move forward regardless of the things that come our way.
Absolutely. And in terms of self-awareness, I feel it's such of a huge thing. Are there any additional like tools or resources that you use to help people to become more self-aware, or is it the free practices that we've mostly focused on and touched on that is your focus and you feel are the most effective?
Those are probably the three pillars of my practice and how I teach people. But then lots of self-care practices. And this is where it can get overwhelming for people because there are so many things that you can add in. I use planners a lot to help me organize my brain and organize my life. That helps to reduce stress. I do facial massage to help reduce stress and to take care of my skin. I use dry brushing as a tool when I feel like my immune system is becoming compromised. I do Epsom salt baths, a lot of heat therapy, steam therapy. I even will do IV hydration when I feel like something might be coming to tax my immune system or if I'm going to travel.
Can you dive into that? I haven't heard of that one before.
IV hydration?
Yeah, that's a new one to me. So I'm like, oh, let's dive there.
Yeah, so you have to find a place that specializes in this. And a friend of mine has a place here in the Denver area called Hydra Lounge, and she has a doctor on staff and nurses on staff. You go in, you relax, they put an IV, which is hydration, but then they can add lots of different vitamins to support your immune system, to help you sleep. My favorite one has zinc, vitamin C, all of the B vitamins, and you just sit and get that IV therapy, and it hydrates your body and it gives you more into your system to help support your immune system. There are ones that you can do with magnesium. So if you are suffering from anxiety of some sort, maybe you've gone through something in life that is really taxing and challenging and your nervous system isn't regulating, the magnesium will help to relax not only your nervous system, but your muscles. So say you've gone and you've had a really difficult workout or you're training for something, you can put those directly into your bloodstream so your body absorbs them quickly and your recovery is faster.
I'm going to dive more into that when we jump off. And
Yes.
how often do you recommend or do you do that? Yeah, I'm curious.
I usually go once or twice a month, just normally, but I just traveled and went to a competition. So I did one right before the competition and I just came back Saturday. So we're here in the middle of the week and I'll probably do one before the week is up just to rehydrate my body and to boost my energy levels again.
And so you mentioned also around planning your like planners and stuff. How do you, because obviously life events happen as well. I don't think I'm asking this for a little bit of a selfish reason, I'll be honest. So it's like, for me, so I'm a huge planner as well. So I sit down Sunday, plan out my week, and it's like finding that balance, I feel, between planning out your week and also just and having the vision. Obviously we're both in business, and but even just a vision for our life, you know, stepping into that, being a life creator and everything, but also enjoying how life unfolds and allowing life to unfold rather than always having to control everything. Like, how do you, I don't know if it's a balance or what are your thoughts on that?
This too could become a playful practice for you. You're 27. I got my first planner from my dad when I graduated high school, and it was one of the most exciting gifts because I too love to plan. And through the different stages of my life, I was definitely an over planner to where I was hyper focused on making sure everything fell perfectly into place. And over time, that started to create the feeling of stress and the feeling of failure because I would set my expectations for myself so high. My to-do list was never achieved. And it was always getting a few things would get carried over, a few more things would get carried over. So I was starting to feel like a failure because of that. It's just been within the last year that I've really changed my relationship to planning. So now I set my annual goals for the business and then break those down into quarterly goals. And from those quarterly goals, I look at each month at a time. What am I going to do each month consistently? And I've chosen certain days to always do those tasks. And then when a week begins, I sit down on a Sunday morning or a Sunday afternoon and I look at the week and then put a few steps into the calendar of things that I'm going to do to move towards that monthly objective, that quarterly objective, that annual objective. So creating these little stepping stones that feel manageable rather than just a whole bunch of to-do items has helped me work through that process. And once I put things in my planner, I leave it alone. And if things come up that I recall, I add them in for the next week to focus on, because I'm really focused on committing myself to the things that I've said yes to for that week already. And I'm not going to add more unless it's an emergency. And then another practice that I've started is making sure that I leave white space in my calendar each week. So I was the person that would say yes to that extra meeting, yes to that extra thing, yes to this, yes to that. And then my calendar was so cluttered and stuffed and bursting at the seams that I had no time for me to breathe, to practice, to do the things that feed my sense of creativity and help me stay motivated and inspired to show up in life.
Yeah, I resonate with that. And yeah, the starting to, as you mentioned there, add white space is something that during these past, probably the past, I don't know, 3 months or so has actually been really valuable ultimately, because beforehand, as you're saying, my schedule would have just taken this for example. I'd have like podcast and then another podcast and phone call, then it'd just be like one thing after another. And now I do try and leave that white space ultimately for life to unfold, or I can go out for a quick walk or something, or whatever it is, whatever I feel like doing in the moment. And I think within that, I don't know if you would agree with this, that is part of everything that we're talking about. That's for me a part of living peacefully, like
Mm-hmm.
mindfulness, and even practicing meditation as well, to have this white space.
Yeah, one of my advisors says to me often, it's the difference between being a human being and a human doing. And most of us are humans doing. We're doing life every second of every day. We're just running the hamster wheels, doing the things. But if you want to be a human being, you need to create time and practices for that too.
Yeah, I love that. Amazing. Roberta, in the time that we have left, I would love to get some final thoughts from you, maybe some words of inspiration, whatever is coming up for you. What would you say to our audience?
Yeah, I would say both to you and your audience, when we're thinking about planning, the other piece that is really important that I've recently given more time and attention to is celebrating your accomplishments. Because,
Mhm.
especially for high achievers, there's this tendency to keep doing and doing and not pausing to reflect on, look at everything I've done, from the little things to the big things, and truly even having a celebration journal where you write down the highlights of the week, of the things that you've accomplished. Because most of the time people see those as they just completed something and it then comes to be this thing of insignificance. But truly, we need to celebrate all of these little things and bigger things that we do to lead to the goals that we want to achieve, to the things that we want for ourselves in life, and to spend that time in reflection and celebration.
It's been a pleasure to talk with you today. Before I let you go, where can people find you online if they want to learn more about what you do, maybe join some of your, I know you do the online classes. Where's the best place for people to find you?
On my website, peacefulliving.com, and full has two L's, so three L's all in a row. And on the website, you can sign up for a live stream class. You can take an on-demand class. You can also set up a discovery call, which is 30 minutes on the phone on Zoom with me. And we'll sit down and talk about what your unique needs are and what practices might help support you and fit into your life. And then you can also follow me on Instagram at Roberta_PeaceFull Living. And I have lots of little tidbits of information there to help support a person's curiosity about self-care practices, about Pilates, yoga, meditation. And oftentimes I do a Wellness Wednesday segment where I show different things that you can do for the health of your wrists, for the health of your back, to release tension in your neck. Anything that a person asks me about, I'll oftentimes put in a Wellness Wednesday segment.
Excellent. And is that every Wednesday?
Yes.
Every Wednesday. Amazing. So I will link website, Instagram, and everything in the description. So yeah, guys, like definitely go and check out Roberta's website, Instagram, and connect with her online. But yeah, Roberta, thank you so much for today. I've learned a lot as well, which is always love those episodes where I learn a lot as well and can apply into my own life, and I'm sure our audience has today as well. So thank you for your time, and yeah, guys, definitely check out Roberta's website. As I mentioned, all linked down below. So I will look forward to seeing you next Tuesday, for the next episode of Raising Consciousness. Until then, have a great week, guys. And for more after today's show, be sure to head on over to raisingconsciousness.show to get all of the show notes, transcriptions, videos for each episode, and a hell of a lot more. And if you got value from this episode, found it insightful, or learned a thing or two, please leave a review where you can let everyone know that this show is worth checking out. I appreciate you so much. You'll be hearing from me in the next episode.